Commission on Utilities. It's for the GWA Water Works Authority. For the record, those present are myself, Commissioner Untitled, Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Santos, and Commissioner Martinez. Everybody's on board. Our General Manager, Miguel Bordallo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For issues for decision, today we only have one item, and this is Resolution 05 FY 2022. And this is in regards to our northern and southern Guam Reservoir project, the design services project. We're seeking approval of a change order, specifically to address issues at the Ugam Reservoir site. As you know, this project is a court order project. It is necessary for us to complete the design so we can put these projects out for construction. The Ugam site is still under design, and one of the unique things about the Ugam Reservoir is that it's also used to meet the chlorine contact time from the surface water treatment plant. And so there's some monitoring and analysis that needs to take place in order to verify that we've achieved the proper chlorination, the contact time, and also with regards to the treatment plant, monitoring for total organic carbon to make sure that we don't have disinfection byproducts further downstream in the distribution system. Currently, on the site, the analyzers and the monitoring equipment are located in various parts of the plant. And in order to improve the performance with the new reservoir in place, what we're seeking to do is add a new building specifically for the instrumentation for this monitoring and analytical equipment. So this was not part of the original design scope, and we're seeking a change order to have the designer include this new building to improve the function of the overall plant and the new reservoir when it's constructed. As you know, the reservoir site did change, and that was the subject of one of the previous change orders because of our failed negotiations for a reasonable price for the adjacent property, and so we had to find another property. So there's been a little bit of a change in configuration, but we still need to get that new reservoir built. So this change order is for the design services that would be required to design this new instrumentation and monitoring building on the site and relocate all the equipment to this one facility and to replace some of the analyzers that are already old. And so since we're building a new building, we'll put new analytical equipment in it. It will also provide for, because we're extending the design period, continuation of the progress design meetings with the designer and our project team. We expect that the design will be completed on January 31st. I apologize, it should be 2022, not 2021. That was a mistake on our part. And the funding is being pulled from our bond funds, PW 0911, which is water system reservoir improvements. And this will allow us to complete the Ugam design project and get it out to bid.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Untitled.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Miguel, the building requirement to house the equipment, was it anticipated with the new reservoir? Seems like they would have had to, you would have to have, thought of the controls needed for that reservoir at the time.
The equipment and controls were included in the original design scope, but consolidating some of for example, the TOC analyzer is located in the surface water treatment plant, but in an unconditioned space. So it wasn't a very good position to begin with. However, the chlorine analyzers are located where the booster pump is. So there, as we were going through it, the operator, the O&M manager for production, the prior one before he retired, requested if, in order to improve the performance of the plant, we could consolidate everything into one location, provide a conditioned space, and that would improve, number one, the longevity of the equipment that we have, even replacements, and then make it easier for the operators. So it's an enhancement. The original design did account for for the equipment in its current locations, but this is an enhancement that we thought was a good idea.
Okay.
Miguel, any other questions? How many more tanks do we have to do?
So new tanks, I think between this design project, we still have Ugam, Santa Rita is in progress, Sanifa is in progress, Santa Rosa is in progress. But we do have repairs to make on some of the other reservoirs, Windward Hills, for example, and then some of the ones further south. So the exact number, I believe, is around 13, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, does that include my favorite tank over here by the Home Depot?
Yes, the airport tank?
The airport tank?
Yeah.
That's also one of those, right? One of the 13?
Yes, and the holdup to that has been in
property.
part the property issues with the airport, but also off-site property issues to allow us to connect the new tank to the existing piping running along Airport Road. That property acquisition was just completed actually a few days ago. We got notice that escrow closed on that, and that was a probate matter, and so it took a little bit to get that accomplished, but that's also now done, so we should be moving forward with getting all of these out to bid.
So I have two more questions. Are we still on track to meet the timelines of the court order? Or we
Yes,
are?
sir. If you recall, we did get an extension.
Extension, okay.
So we're still on track. It's going to be tight, but
Okay, and the last question I have is, do we have all the money we need to do these?
yeah, we do.
We have okay, so we don't need the new money yet for these projects?
No, the Series 2028 bonds provided
The funding.
the remaining funding to complete all of the reservoir projects, which was our last project under the court order.
Okay, did we already float the 2020B bond?
2020B was a refinancing, which
Oh, okay.
we did do. It did save us about $1 million a year in debt service.
Great, okay. So you still need to, we have other court order projects that are not yet completed, right?
Just
this
the
is-
reservoir.
just the reservoir?
Once we're done with all the reservoirs, the new ones and the repairs, then we will be done with the court order.
Okay,
And then on to the consent decree.
okay. Any other questions, commissioners? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the reports.
Okay,
What do you want to tell us?
Walk through the management report.
Sure.
On page 23 of your board books, the operations update for production. Our output for the month of October was 39 million gallons a day, a total of 1.2 million kgals. We had for the month about 93 active wells, 6 on standby, and 11 needing repair. So production has been relatively steady. Moving on to page 24, for Tumon Maui, we did see a dip in the first week of October in production, but otherwise pretty steady at 1 million gallons a day. For the
Caused the dip, just technical.
So this station is not manned 24/7, so if there is a power glitch or an event that causes the system to go down, it has to be reset manually, so it takes a little while for the guys to get out
Took us a
there.
while.
Yeah.
How do we become aware? Just part of the roving?
No, there is the roving, but we do have a SCADA system in place there, and so there typically will be a call out to SCC.
And it was just that one day.
Yeah, just the one day. For the distribution system for the month of October, we're at 92.7% operability at all of our pump stations. It's a slight decrease over the previous month, and this is because we have the Windward Hills pump station. We had 2 pumps go down over the course of the last 2 months. And so we have the equipment we need to make those repairs, but they have not been made as of the time of this report. So that decline is because of just one pump station having an additional pump that went down. On page 26, you can see distribution tank levels for the month of October, 2 significant events resulting mostly from the heavy rainfall. We had turbidity issues at the Ugam plant, which took the plant offline for quite some time during the heavy rains at the beginning of October, and that we were able by mid-October to build the levels back up to where they should be. And then again towards the end of October, we had an additional rain event, And also, that was combined with a line break in Marisa that caused some of the downstream reservoirs also to dip in their levels. But that was resolved once the line was repaired.
How did that affect service in this house?
There were temporary outages as the repairs were made, but for the most part,
Hours, but not days.
right, correct. But it just takes a while to get our reservoir levels back up. I will point out, I thought I had it here, maybe it's on another slide, but I think we had a record month for rainfall in October. So that was part of the reason for the turbidity issues at Uven. Moving on to page 27, on the wastewater collection side, pump station operability 88.9%, we're kind of holding. We want to see improvement there, and we are working on that. We have 3.3 actual miles for our inspection and sewer cleaning, so we're slightly under the average 5 miles a month average. We can make that up, but I think we're doing okay for the year. On the wastewater treatment side on page 28, this is where you can see the notation for the number of inches of rainfall that we've had in October, as is reflected in the flow rates through the plants. Primarily, you can see increases in the Agate Santa Rita plant, the Ematic plant, and also the Hagåtña plant. Northern District didn't see that much of an increase, which is a good sign for us and payoff from our work on the Interceptor project. So we will hopefully continue to see those stable flows regardless of the rain. On sludge disposal, we're down slightly for this month. Again, you'll note that there's nothing for Agana. We have had centrifuge issues, so we've been having to process sludge from Agana at the Agate Santa Rita plant. So their numbers have increased, and the Agana plant remains, the sludge disposal remains offline. However, we did get the parts that were required to repair those centrifuges, and that's ongoing, I believe. So total cost for sludge disposal for the month of October was under our average at roughly 53,000. For asset management, our preventive maintenance to corrective maintenance ratio, we're at 68% of work orders for preventive maintenance and 32% for corrective maintenance. Our completion rates for the preventive maintenance at 72% of all work orders issued have been completed, and on the corrective maintenance side, 84% of all work orders issued have been completed. The ratio for leak repairs versus equipment repairs, equipment corrective maintenance at 46% of total, and leak repairs at 54% of total. And then completion ratios for the leak repairs, 97% of all work orders issued have been completed, and for equipment corrective maintenance, 84% of all work orders issued have been completed. On the court order summary, no changes. As I mentioned, this reservoir project is the last remaining court order item. We're still at 98.9% complete. This will go to 100 once we finish all of the reservoirs. There were, as you can imagine, with all the rain in October, you'll see a long list of SSOs that we have had for up to and including November 8th. So the court order unit and the wastewater collection team has been very busy addressing some of these issues. We continue to see compounding effects. The heavy rain doesn't help, but also we still continue to see fog and debris in our collection system that causes some of these overflows. On the land acquisition summary on page 33, again, some of these, anything you see here in red shows some progress. We're still waiting on DLM on a couple of issues. The airport reservoir, you see this as of, for the month of October, it was pending security titles response for closing. However, I think we've already closed on that in early November. So we're now ready to move forward with getting all of the loose ends tied up for the airport reservoir. We're still waiting for the surveyor to complete work on some of our deep well land issues. And then for the Aspen Springs, the complications are arising from a portion of that site being on federal property. We're continuing to try and move forward with that. We did get some movement with Park Service finally submitting something to the SHPO, and us moving forward with biological assessment. So the work is still ongoing, but we have not resolved it to date. And then the last few slides are just with regard to our leak repair progress. And as you can see on page 36, we are still keeping our daily backlog down below 20, so on average. So things are still, the pressure line unit is still maintaining their performance with regard to controlling leak backlogs. The only other thing I wanted to add, which is I don't have a slide for, but it's kind of a recent development with the pending signing of the infrastructure bill by the president. We did go through what passed Congress, and it appears to me that the last 12 years of legislative authorization for water and wastewater infrastructure grants that EPA administers to us have included a specific authorization for the territories of 1.5% of the total funding. In the latest infrastructure bill, I did not see that authorization, and therefore it appears not to be in line with the last 12 years of funding authorization from Congress. So if that specific authorization of 1.5% to the territories, that's 1.5% of the total amount split between all the eligible territories, of which Guam is a part. If that one specific 1.5% is not listed, then I think the default is goes back to the 2010 authorizations and the original distribution formula that's in the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act, which will give Guam only, or will give all of the territories only between 0.25 and 0.3% of the total funding. So this could be a significant issue affecting the amount of funding we would have otherwise had if the last 12 years of legislative authorizations were followed. So that came up late last week in my review. I quickly dispatched a letter to the representative, Sir Nicholas, asking him to check on that, to verify, to clarify, to see if that, if it was just left out or whether it can be corrected before it was signed by the president. I didn't get a response back on that yet. I think it's too late.
You signed it this morning?
Can you forward us what you sent to
Sure.
Congressman so we can, we need, so at least it's a record that we tried to reach out to.
Sure.
The part that we're gonna have a struggle with is working backwards. It never works, right? Especially in Congress.
So this is only the portion of the funding that goes through the grant, the Clean Water Act grants and the Safe Drinking Water Act grants.
But is there anything separate? I thought that we were able to, I know utilities has something, but
I thought you had mentioned the possibility of $100 million for GWA. It was mentioned a few months back. And obviously, Congress has to do what it does, right? But that apparently...
That assessment was based on the last 12 years of historic funding levels, the 1.5% of the total. So with this decreased amount, if it is in fact the case, then whatever estimates I previously provided you will be in error, and it would be significantly less than that.
But at the time you made the estimate, it was based on, is there an early draft that had it at the 1.5%?
No. It was just based on the total funding amount, and there was an assumption that the distribution formula would be the same as it has been for the last 12
Plus
years.
the 1.5%. But now you're saying the actual act that was passed by Congress
Did not contain that specific line item that said 1.5% for the territory.
And so it's unclear what our allocation may be?
It is to me at this point. It appears to me to be significantly less than the authorization, or than the amount that would have resulted if the 1.5% authorization was kept in there, as it has been for the last 12 years.
And you're now reaching out also to USCPA to confirm their reading? Do they have the same reading you do?
I did send an email to Tom Conner this morning, but I haven't had a specific conversation with him about it yet.
But the concern traveled, right?
Yes.
You shared that with him, and now we're trying to clarify
Right.
our worst fears. May be that exactly what you're telling us may have occurred. And
I hope I'm wrong, but
we hope you're wrong too, but it's been we used to get $2 million a year, we've been getting $7, $8, $9 million a year. Now it's unclear. And
Well, I
7 or
think-
8 for some time now, and then now it's a little unclear with this new bill, that's the law, it's unclear to you exactly what our allocation may be.
Yeah, so I think that we expect that the 8 million, 9 million a year will continue. It was on top of that with the new infrastructure bill, how much more would we get? So that part is what's unclear.
So that's what I was going to ask. None of those figures were built into your rate analysis or anything. That would have just been gravy.
No, but that's an excellent point. I think there has been assumptions based on the PUC's consultants have made that, you won't need to borrow in the future because you're going to get all this infrastructure money, but it's obviously, you can't base your future rates on that until it's firm, and even now it's not as firm as we thought it was.
It may not be there.
Right.
Okay.
So that's it for the GM's report. Maybe we want to go through.
That's not good news.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Commissioner Sanchez, yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not finding fault per se with anybody. It's just, it's difficult with federal legislation, and especially when we're way the heck out here, right? Trying to figure out, is there a better way? I don't know if Congressman Nicholas is aware of the issues that the valid issues you're raising, that based on the language that had cleared the House, of which he's a part, and before it passed the Senate, aware that the language was unclear, that it could be interpreted to mean a reduction in available funds versus an increase in available funds. And is there a way we can improve that process? And it is very difficult because we're way the heck out there. It's a very dynamic process there, but it's too bad neither he nor us were in a very good position. Or it's not clear to me that how good a position we could have put him in, or he could be aware of, to say, hey, while this thing's in play, this is our concern, right?
Well, I think even in my discussions with US EPA, everyone was, no one was anticipating that there would be a change in the formula that has been included with such federal legislation over the past 12 years. So the fact that, I don't know if it had to do the fact that at the end it was such a rush and there was all kinds of horse trading going on before an accord was reached among all the parties about moving it forward. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. So I don't know that there's anyone to blame. I just think it's an unfortunate, it appears to me to be an unfortunate oversight that will, we will still get more than we have in previous years, but just how much more perhaps was not as much as we were expecting.
Okay. Tully? The floor is yours.
As you might recall, we were not able to give you the year-end reports in the last meeting because
What
we were
page
working.
do you want, Tully? Can you just go back?
37.
37.
37 on your board books.
Because we were working to get the trial balances with all the adjustments to the auditors so we can keep on our audit timeline. So this is a snapshot of the financial indicators comparing September to August. We did end the year with the 1.31 debt service coverage.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that at the end of the fiscal year, we did move the 11.4 million into the rate stabilization reserve, so our days cash on hand
Increased. Or decreased.
went down slightly.
Yeah.
Well, by 50 days. Why don't we go to the next slide? This just is a picture.
Tully,
Just before you leave that.
Okay.
Just before you leave that slide, are you still seeing a drop in wastewater flows as well as revenue? That has been with us since the hotel industry, took such a big hit.
Yes.
That's still happening?
But we did do slightly better than October last year.
Okay. But
And I have some slides for October.
okay, thank you.
So this is just a picture of our debt service coverage. As you recall, in FY20, COVID hit in March, and then FY '21 was a full year of COVID. So, as I said, we ended the year with 1.31. Let's go to the next slide. This is just a picture of our indicators over the last 5 years. Our AR days are have been better despite the the implications of COVID. The bottom slide shows our collection rate, which has actually been improving. So this is just to kind of provide a record of how we're doing year to year over the last 5 years. Let's go to the next slide. Again, this is a picture of our demand flows. The blue is water, the red is wastewater, and then the lines are just the growth in customers. So our customers are growing slightly year to year. I'll move to the
Quick
next
question,
slide.
Colleen?
Sure.
So, I mean, this is all anecdotal, and I wonder about it, but I've noticed like if I'm reading this right, we had 4,000 customers. Is that number? 4,000, 73, 77, 41, 21. Right? That's the number of customers?
Right, yes.
Okay. And then we have a slight drop, like 5% drop in 2021. And we're seeing that our wastewater flows as expected because of the hit on tourism is low. But, there was the recent census was released and there was a population drop, but that's over a 10-year period. Lots of speculation whether that population drop was steady or was it just in the last 2 or 3 years.
Or maybe we didn't count everybody.
Well, that too, but I mean, that's also there. But I notice even our number of customers has gone down, which makes me wonder, that may contribute to anecdotally to the population drop. Some of the drop is because we have fewer customers, but it seems to be more rapid in 21. 5% decline. Prior to that, it was a pretty steady 4,100, 4,100, 4,100. Then we show a 5% decline.
Actually, these are the flows. Sorry, the axis on the right is KGALs.
Oh,
The axis on the right is number of customers in thousands.
Right, 4,000, but in 21 we have 30.
No, sorry, it's 29,000 wastewater accounts. Remember, we have 42,000 water accounts and about
Oh, so we have the same number of customers, less flow, but same number of customers, more or less?
Correct.
Okay, so good, I stand corrected then. So
Yeah,
we
sorry
have
for
the
those
same number of
numbers are-
customers, but for whatever reason, they're creating less flow. We know some of that has to be the tourism piece of the puzzle, right, where the hotels are not contributing. Okay, so same number of customers, the drop in flow has to do primarily with the tourism impact, right, on the wastewater
So
side.
you might recall that there was an analytical study on demand that was part of the rate filing, and trends seem to be that demand per customer is going down nationally. So even though we might have the same number of customers, each customer is using a little less.
I wonder what that is.
You know,
Leaks, fixing leaks?
no,
Conservation.
Conservation?
Conservation measures, but also the efficiency of fixtures that are
Yeah.
used. You
Yeah,
remember
new
that
fixtures.
Fixing
the overall trend,
Yeah.
you're using low flow toilets,
Okay.
and as people renovate their homes, what they're buying is better stuff.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's just the general trend, right? I mean, you go to Home Depot, they're not going to be selling
Right.
They're
all
selling
energy.
almost that one brand exclusive.
So the team that did the analytical study for us
Yeah.
does this nationwide, and they confirm for us that what they're seeing here correlates to what they're seeing across the nation.
And as price goes up, what happens to demand, right? People find ways to save a nickel. Right?
Sure.
And take advantage of it. So, and if it's a national trend, because I think nationally rates are going up everywhere. All right, thank you.
okay. Colleen, go ahead.
Sorry.
Next.
Okay. And then this is just a snapshot of our employee counts at the end of the year.
that's
And
employees.
FY '21, as you recall, we did We were monitoring our hiring because we wanted to make sure that our expenditure levels were within our revenue. We do have maybe about a dozen active recruitments in place, and we hope to get our numbers back up by the end of the year, calendar year.
Where are you seeing the job change with the job? We're losing,
Are you retiring
It's all
people?
over the place. There are people retiring. We had a number of lower level folks leave. So like I said, we're in the process of hiring. We had a number of people in customer service hired. Yeah.
Don't you also have people who are in the helper stage, the lower levels, and after a little while they decide this is not for them?
There have been some that have pursued, worked for a year or two, and then they were doing this. For example, I think there's one or two that were also looking to get into either police or military service.
Something else.
And that went through, and then they left us to do that.
Sure. Okay.
But we have had several trades helpers who have tested and passed and then are now in the process of being promoted. So there's a little bit of both.
Good. That's the hope. You need more people. You really do. Anyway, go ahead, Tully.
So this is just a snapshot of our operating revenue and expenses over the last 12 months. Generally in September, we're doing a active search for invoices to make sure that we're accruing. So typically you would see, the September expenses to be higher. Moving on to water revenues. For FY 21, we were about 1.2 million less in revenues. As you might recall, 21 was a full year of COVID, and 20 was about half a year.
Okay.
Next slide is just demand. So similar picture to the revenues. We were about 418,000 kgals less of water demand in 21 than in 20. The next slide is our wastewater revenues, and the pie looks a little different again because the residential wastewater is billed at a flat rate, so the slice of the residential pie is smaller as compared to water.
So if you look at the hotel one on this one, in FY20, you have a higher amount, and then it goes down in FY21 because your thing is COVID only hit half of the year of 2020.
Right. Yes,
That's when
in March.
yeah. So you see the full year impact on FY 2021.
Okay, and then this is the wastewater flow. And then the next page is a snapshot of our operating expenses of year to year. Comparing FY21 to FY20, we were about $3 million lower in FY21. So 85.4 million compared to 88.4 in FY20. So the percentages look about the same.
We were in cost containment here for
Right.
9 months out of the year in 2020 and
Right. And
all of 2021.
this is a picture of demand and flows against our revenues. So we ended the year a little better than we began. The next slide breaks it up by water
Water
and
and wastewater.
And then this takes a look at revenues compared to collections. The purple line is our year-to-date collection ratio, and then the green line is the month-to-month. Typically, the months with higher better collection is generally when we receive our big check from the Navy. So that bumps up the collection. And then the last slide is basically showing our AR aging. The top line, the orange line, is our current, and the second line is the 120 days. And if you take out our inactive accounts, which is the chart on the right, you see that 120-day line drop. And then I have similar statistics for October.
Just before you get to that one.
Sure.
What was the number we had? I remember at one of our last meetings, you said that you had about 200 customers who didn't have water service anymore. In other
That
words,
were cut off.
that were cut off. Yeah, are they coming back? Do you know?
I know that one of the things that we're doing is we're sending teams back to the customers that have been disconnected just to make sure that they're not, illegally reconnected.
Okay. Good enough.
So that's just a standard practice that we're following.
No, we have.
What are you finding?
What are you finding?
Okay.
On their own?
Do we prosecute? What do we do? Prosecute them? Oh, and it's up to AG to prosecute, right? How many pending police reports of theft have we turned into the AG this year? Maybe if you don't have that number.
If you don't have that Tuesday,
Is it an issue for you, Miguel? How do you think about it?
Average is just a few cases a month. So,
25. But do we know if they're acting on it? As far as you know, has any one of your police reports been acted upon by the AG?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know the answer to that question, but we'll find out and get back to you.
for Tuesday, if
Just
you
curious.
can.
I mean, it's, to me, you're doing your job, and then you turn it over to another group that
Who do that?
they're very busy. We acknowledge that, but that's part of their job, because it's sort of, we become toothless if they don't prosecute, right? We don't, and it's not fair to the thousands of customers that are paying their bills. If someone is illegally taking services from other ratepayers, we file a complaint, and the complaint's not acted.
So, the ones that we find are not the ones that keep me up at night, sir, it's the ones that we don't find.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
But at least you have a process that attempts
to
to
try and find.
find them, right? And then you have a process that finds them and prosecutes and
Right.
Turns them
files a
over to the
report.
people.
So at least for the ones that you have enacted a process, even if they don't keep you up at night. Maybe the only thing that should keep you up at night is I've sent 20 complaints over to my sister, the AG, or my brother, the AG, and they're ignoring it. I mean, those become reasons for interface with.
One big trash can.
Yeah, but, it costs, But anyway, I'd be
Okay.
curious to see, just in the last year or two, it's not keeping me up at night either.
Unfortunately, the only way we hold him accountable is the same time we get elected.
True, but I mean, we can at least put the information out and
Oh, no,
ask for a request. We could request, are you what are you doing? Are you prosecuting me? I mean, I imagine when, I don't know anything about the police business, but I imagine when they send stuff over to be prosecuted, they too become concerned if it's not being,
It's not a high-level crime.
yeah, I guess.
We'll get some statistics and we'll get back to you.
Just let us know.
Give us a couple
Yeah,
years,
just
we're just curious. I mean,
We're just curious. We
let's
want to
see.
know.
Actually,
If we've turned in
give
100.
us- No, let's find out from when he started being the AG. Okay, so.
Well, that's
tie
going to
it
take a
his
little more
performance.
time.
And
So-
tied to when this particular AG started, see how many cases have been referred, and, I mean, we obviously know the action, nothing, but at least, the point is we referred.
That's right.
We do our part.
He has chosen to prosecute other
Yeah, which is,
alleged
again, is-
alleged
Which
crimes,
is- yeah.
even those alleged that occur here at the CCU. And
Okay.
and yet, we can't get one prosecution for water theft, for,
But,
right?
you know,
So,
and please return the money. It isn't-
yeah, so, anyway.
Okay. Okay, moving right
He's
along.
running for re-election.
Moving right along.
I think
Moving right
we're
along.
now on page 54, which is the October financial indicators. We did, October was really tight, we're at 1.25, we're trying to manage our expenses to make sure we're, living within our means. Our collection ratio did go up though for that month. As I said, our FTE levels, have dropped, but we are actively working to replace about a dozen vacancies. Next page. This is just a similar to the September chart. This is a snapshot of the year. Sorry.
You attribute the collection ratio improvement from what? Is it the assistance that we got from some of the executive branch? I know that there was some
That program for assistance for the
paying
subsidy for payments.
So we are getting regular payments from DOA for folks that are applying for utility assistance. I believe that the disconnection policy has also assisted, and
Yeah.
we're actively working with our ratepayers to sign up for payment plans if they need assistance. So
Okay.
I think it's a combination.
So now that people know they're going to get disconnected, they're paying their bill.
Right.
Okay.
Payment plan requests that we're reviewing, we still do see a lot of cases where customers are, for example, have leaks that they don't know about, it runs up the bill, and they want to come in, they want to, pay the bill, that they're taking responsibility for it, but it is difficult, so they still are requesting extended pay plans. So we're hoping that the customer assistance program that we have proposed to the PUC as part of our rate package is approved, and then we will be able to offer customers assistance to prevent those types of high bills from occurring in the first place. It will reduce the amount of payment plans that we have to enter into, and keep it such that the people, especially those who are maybe on the lower income side, are more able to afford their water services.
So we will hopefully offer water audits as well as leak assistance to help with fixing leaks.
Yeah. I actually had one customer who had approached me some time back, and I told him, I said, you must have a leak. And so I recently met with this customer, and he said, yeah, I had a leak. It was under the concrete floor, so he had to fix it, and now he's back, he's okay. Telling the one thing I think I'd like to ask you is, for Tuesday night, could you give us the debt profile of the bonds outstanding?
Sure.
And I tell you why that's interesting, because people don't understand that our debt service is going to go up. Two things are going to happen. The debt service is going to go up, I think, in 22. We're in 22 already. 23, the debt service is going up. And there's two things I think you're going to see. 22, 23, the debt service is going up, even if we do nothing. If we get no rate increase, rate relief, debt services, I remember Commissioner Sanchez always used to say, look, we're borrowing money to pay for debt service. All the rate increases are basically revolving around debt service. But if you give us that profile of your debt service, because I think you're also going to see that some of those bonds are now going to drop off, like in 2030 or 2035, what we thought about, once before. Mr. Sanchez, where we said, as these things get paid off, we'll have that money in the rate base already to make another bond issuance. But we're not quite there, so that'll be at least something for the commissioners to look at, so we get a better feel for that. Okay, Commissioner Sanchez.
Thanks, Mr. And when you two can, I saw a brief reference to it. I assume you'll update us. We're really in the middle of a 5-year rate case. We had to do some significant study and work, and now you're sort of in the middle of bringing that whole package to the PUC for review. So if you can today or Tuesday, just kind of touch base on how's that going, because it really speaks to what the chairman is talking about. The great majority of the rate increase that is needed in the future is still for capital improvements. It's to continue to fix a system that is very, very old, needs to be updated and modernized. And while no one likes a rate increase, part of our success, if that's the right word, is, in the last 20 years, we borrowed $650 million, and now we're going to borrow another $400 million, right? We still, in fact, have to go get that authorization, correct? And so we have to start telling that story to our ratepayers that the house remodeling is going to continue.
Yes.
It's still a very old house, and we tackled the kitchen and the living room, but we still got the bedrooms to work on. The house still needs attention. And we owe it to our ratepayers to let them know where their money is going, why their rates are going up, and what they will get for that money. Because my bigger concern is just the sheer magnitude of the borrowing will offset, refi. Refi save you money on existing debt, but we're going to take on new debt. We're going to make our mortgage bigger. But in exchange, ratepayers get these benefits of improved service, reduced water loss, and the list. But both of you, or your whole team, is actively engaged now in a PUC process. I'm just curious how that is going, because there is supposed to be another rate adjustment soon.
We hope.
If I read it right, they've delayed some of
We
the
were hoping that it would be in place.
October 1, didn't happen, right? So now you're in, and it's happened before, where you may get an adjustment January, March, who knows, then you talk about compression and all those issues. But the real question is there going to be a rate adjustment? What is that level of rate adjustment? And what do the ratepayers get because the rate is? And the overwhelming majority of the reason it will go up, the rates will go up, has to do with borrowing, to continue to fix the system. Still badly in need. We have talked about it for many, many years now, but by 2035, we may be spending up to $1.5 billion. This all started in 2003. That's kind of, I think everyone at this table has experienced, how does this community even come up with that amount of money? And we've struggled at DOE, we struggled at the hospital, we struggled in many places. We've been able to raise that money so far, but we still have a long ways to go. That's going to affect rates, but in exchange, ratepayers get cleaner water, safer water, they get the ag and wastewater treatment plant. We're going to get the northern actually paid for by the federal government, but we know water loss is a huge concern for you. Sort of the next part of the puzzle. First it was clean water and safe drinking water and protecting the oceans by upgrading the wastewater service. And that cost us $650 million, plus some help from DOD. Miguel's list continues to be significant, and because this is what's needed to improve the system and therefore the service, and over time can bring costs down. But there's a big piece of it is the mortgage. The mortgage is going to go up because we still need repairs, and we need to be prepared to tell our ratepayers. So curious when, not today's meeting. I saw a reference to it. I think between the two of you, you'll brief us a little bit on the PUC process, what your expectations are so far.
I can give you a status update once we're done with the financials.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Darlene, what's next?
Okay, this is a snapshot of demand in October compared to last year. Our water demand is about the same, 436.3 thousand kgals in 22 compared to 435.4 thousand kgals in 21. Next slide. This is a picture of our wastewater revenue. Again, the pie looks a little different because our residential customers are billed flat rate, which is one of the things that we're hoping to change in our rate filing, moving to binary rates for our residents. Slide is the wastewater flows. And then following is our year-to-date expenses. We've gone up about 5% compared to last year. There was a little bit of a pent-up demand for some of supplies. So again, we're trying to manage that and live within our means. Just to pick the same picture as September, just moving over 1 month of revenues and demand. And then the following page is broken out by water and wastewater. And then following that is a look at our collections. Again, similar to September, just moving over one month. And then the last page is just breakdown of the AR aging.
You know, in your expenses by categories on page 30, on page 60 of the board books, you know, it shows that LEAC impact affected you because you went a whole lot. You went from 989 to 1.3 million increase. Hey,
Who's running that place?
no, Miguel, you are probably the largest consumer of power in the government of Guam, right?
I think I'm one of John B's favorite customers.
No, I think you're,
Next to GWA.
I think DOE is second. DOE is second.
Yeah, you got a lot of bumps.
There's a lot of pumps, man. Yeah, that's the way the system works. But, you know,
Move a lot of water.
okay.
So,
But yeah, that was the first thing I noticed as well, Mr. Chairman. $300,000 jump in power purchases this October compared to last. That's
Yeah.
all oil.
That's all
That is
LEAC,
all
man.
oil.
Yeah. We don't want it, we don't like it, but we don't have a choice. Look at when I gas my car, oh my God. And I know some people go in and ask for $5 a gas, and I'm going, you're getting a gallon. That's it. Oh my God.
And it's nationwide. I mean,
It's, yeah, no, this is not,
global.
yeah.
We were just in California,
Yeah.
they're paying $5 in San Francisco, they're paying $5 a gallon.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Go ahead, Miguel.
so just to update you on the status of the
Rate plan.
rate case before the PUC, we did conclude evidentiary hearings last week. The highlights or lowlights, I guess, depending on how you look at it, we did present. We started with a presentation of our initial rate filing in May. We gave some context and some background about how that incorporated the requirements of the stipulation and rate order from
All the studies.
February of 2020, which required us to do all the 7 analytical studies, incorporate the results into an updated rate application, including an enhanced rate model, and then determine the rate path for 22, 23, and 24. We presented all of that information, and we illustrated that if we follow the strict requirements of the stipulation, the rate increases that would be required based on the analytical studies would be close to 40% over the 3-year period. Over the rate period, rather. And so we obviously did not want to subject the ratepayers to that, so we modified, made some adjustments and provided a reasonable request that would allow us to meet our obligations moving forward with our capital improvement program, but do so in such a manner that the rate increases would not be as severe as if all of the requirements of the stipulation were followed. So we proposed initially in May 10%, 10%, and 7%. When we filed that in May, we did not know whether or not we would be receiving any federal assistance.
Yeah.
We did ask, but we did not have a firm commitment, so we could not incorporate that into the initial filing. Subsequent to that, however, during the process of discovery with the PUC's consultants, we did, while discovery was ongoing, we did find out that the governor would commit to assisting us with our request, and so we therefore submitted to the PUC and their consultants an updated rate model which incorporated the federal assistance, and that did what the governor wanted to do, which is mitigate the rate impact. So
Is this ARRP money?
the
And how was
ARPA money,
offering?
14.4 million.
Okay, so now you factor that in, okay.
So we factored that in, and then it reduced the rate potential rate increases over the next 3 years to about 7 per year, 7%. So it was brought it down from double digits, which we thought was a good accomplishment. We presented that, and as we presented it, the PUC's consultants immediately objected, saying that we were presenting new information and this should be a new rate filing, and therefore they requested that we, within 2 weeks, give them all the updated information, claiming that they had not received it before and that they wanted 4 additional weeks to analyze it, and then another round of discovery which would have further delayed the adjudication of the rate case, which is already well beyond the period that was intended under statute and PUC rules. So they objected to our testimony and wanted it thrown out. The administrative law judge let us proceed. They then, when we wrapped up our presentation, they presented their testimony on the rate case, and their position was that they wanted GWA to burn up all of the relief money so that there were 0 rate increases, but they did not analyze anything outside of 2024, so which we did. And the reason why we proposed what we proposed was in 2025 we follow the CIP, which has been approved by everybody. No one has objected to our CIP or the funding amounts that are required to support it. If we follow using tax-exempt commercial paper as was recommended, and out in 2025, there will be additional debt service. And so by moderating our rate increases, we can keep our rate curve steady. If we followed the PUC's consultants, their 0 rate increase, burn up all your reserves and use all your federal funding, then in 2025, the rate increase that would be required was on the order of close to 40% in 1 year, just to meet the debt service obligations. They did not analyze that at all in their presentation. They just kind of ignored it, kicked the can down the road, and then didn't account for what would happen in 2025. So the Navy also presented their testimony. The rate that was proposed included an increase to the Navy, which set them above the corresponding GovGuam rate, and so they wanted to be treated the same as GovGuam was treated. So they presented that, and then we had an opportunity to rebut both, which we did, and we indicated that despite the PUC's consultants' objections, we did not present anything that was not previously provided to them. So there was no new information. It was not a new rate filing. It was exactly this, almost exactly the same thing we gave them when we first got word that the governor was looking to approve. In fact, as I mentioned, at that point we said 777. The final recommendation that we made was actually 6.5s, because we were able to make some other adjustments and reduce some other expenses and lower the potential rate increases even further. So we ended up presenting our rebuttal to every point that the PUC's consultants had made. They, in their analysis, overestimated O&M expenses based on water loss. They had double counted. Because they didn't use our rate model to do their analysis, even though they're the ones that requested the enhanced rate model, they didn't use it when they prepared their adjustments to our rate filing. So we had built into the model reductions in O&M expenses from the analytical studies on the water loss control program. They added one more layer on top of that in their spreadsheet, and it didn't take into account that so they were double counting the reduction in expenses. So we kind of made some corrections and presented that to the ALJ, and what ultimately resulted was a 3-year rate path of about 8%, effectively 8% for the first year, and then 6.5. And I say effectively 8%. It's not an 8% rate increase. It would result in an 8% increase in revenues, but actually, for most of our residential customers, they would actually see a rate decrease because of the new rate structure that we propose.
Cost of service and the new rate structure that result.
And the customer assistance program. So, the most financially challenged of our residential ratepayers would actually be protected under under what we propose, which was a restructuring of the rates, and imposition of a volumetric rate for wastewater. That helps set us up to get to a cost of service approach on the wastewater side. So the new rate design was incorporated into our package. The customer assistance program was incorporated into our package. So the rate, some customer classes will actually have lower rates than last year if the PUC approves what we proposed. And then the customers that end up using more, because we changed the tiers, they would actually make up that difference. So there's a savings for residential customers that use below 5,000 gallons. Anybody that uses above that ends up paying a little more because they're using more. And so that change in inclining block tiers for rates, which is consistent with many other jurisdictions in the states, that is kind of what we propose, and that would allow us to increase the revenues without really increasing rates for certain customer classes. So it's 8.1% increase in revenues if our recommendations are followed, but that doesn't equate to 8% increases in the rates. So a lot of, as I said, most of our residential customers using water below 5,000 gallons a month will actually see a decrease in their monthly bill.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sanchez.
Even with the volume, are we going to, as part of this package, first up, was there an agreement reached with the PUC consultants on this package you're describing, or still under
None at all.
under review?
None at all. No agreement at all.
So you're summarizing our package.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So all of this now is before the ALJ.
And the ALJ will then report to the PUC, and then they'll make their call. So, and the consultants are proposing their own rate package then, in effect?
So
By not agreeing with ours, they in effect have their own.
essentially what they proposed was a zero rate increase, burn up all of your reserves,
Our cash reserve.
yes, and then they'd ignore what happens in 2025 because their scope of work only goes up to 2024. And so,
Will you have sufficient cash? But if
No.
they burn off all the cash reserves by 2025, all these cash reserves we built up over all this time would be dissipating? And they think that's a prudent
not
place to leave the
the ones
company?
that are discretionary, and for example, the rate stabilization fund and any benefit we get from receiving the ARPA funding, that would all be used up in the first couple of years.
But the ARPA is, we're not sure how long that assistance will last. Is it supposed to last every year for the next 3 years?
I think
That's 42 million.
we're only getting the amount that has been agreed to already.
That's the 14 million.
And we have up until, my understanding is we have up until end of calendar year 2024 to use it.
And that 14 million, when you factored it into your GWA package,
Right.
it produced 37777?
Yes.
Okay. And then they're saying,
You don't need anything.
they're saying,
But we use some of it in 2025, the rate stabilization fund, which doesn't have a time stale date on it. We use that in 2025 to mitigate any future rate increases there. They're saying, use it all now. Don't increase anything. And then when you get to 2025, 37, 38, 39% rate
which
increase.
is concerning the whole. So, timeline, so you've attempted to reach a consensus. There will be two submissions, I imagine, by the consultant and by GWA to the ALJ.
Already done.
Already done. ALJ is now reviewing all of those, and then we'll make his recommendations to the full PUC.
So
When
the-
timeline, how does that work?
So Georgetown objected and asked for more time. The ALJ didn't rule on that. We made a request that he just stick to this third amended scheduling order already. They've already pushed it. So we're saying there's no new information.
There's no need to
In
push.
fact, the backup that they're asking for, show us how you got the numbers that you got. You have 2 weeks. We did it in 5 minutes using the model in front of the ALJ. Our team just put the numbers in. We walked them through how the adjustments were made, and it was done in 5 minutes. So, and it was all based on information that everybody has had since May or shortly thereafter. So there is no need to extend the schedule any further, and that's what we've argued to the ALJ, but he hasn't decided on that officially, he hasn't issued any order on that. So if he follows the existing scheduling order, he will submit his report, I think before Thanksgiving or around Thanksgiving.
Oh, so it's imminent,
Yeah.
Okay, and then you'll see where he is at, and then you'll prepare your final testimony to the PUC based on the ALJ's review. I imagine you get a chance to go before the PUC and respond to the ALJ's recommendations.
Both parties have an opportunity to make an official filing to the ALJ in response to his report, and then all of that will go to the board, and then when they meet, I plan to be there, and if they want to hear from me, they will.
But at least you will have filed.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, we're looking at maybe
December
decision. And then we're not sure what the effective, if they're going to be compression.
We didn't ask for it.
Oh, so your 3/7s take effect
We just-
in January, I guess?
The effect of the delay, we feel can be absorbed by how we apply the federal relief money. So there's no need to ask for compression.
Okay,
But we recognize that there is an effect of delaying it, and the longer you delay it, the bigger the effect.
consume some of your cash
Yes.
to cover for that. But your expectation is it's possible the PUC to be making a decision in December on this rate debate that's been going on for quite some time for the next 3 years of the 5-year
Yes.
plan.
And the intent,
I was gonna say, that was the other thing that they wanted to do, is they wanted to come back next year again,
and do the same thing.
go through the same.
This is turning out to be a very expensive process for us, and I haven't put an estimate together, but I will say that 30 to 40% of my time has been consumed doing this just to manage the PUC's rate consultants. And so I have lots of other things that I need to be doing, and this is kind of burdensome. And so if the PUC approves with Georgetown's recommendation that we come back next year and do this all over again, I'm going to object and say that it is overly burdensome on the utility. We shouldn't have to be expending this much effort to do what should be a simple
That's the
true-up.
whole idea of 5-year plan.
That's right.
You don't have to do it.
Okay. Commissioner
I
Santos.
mean, in the history of Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Dueñas, what happens if we say no and tell the PUC, you pay your own bills? I mean, what we don't tell the ratepayers is that you pay this. You pay a consultant to tell us that we're not doing our job right. And, the onus is us telling the PUC, do your job. Okay? We're not, you're tasked to do a job. Either you tell us yes or tell us no, but we're going to tell the ratepayer that the consultant that you hired, and by the way, the ratepayer, I don't think the ratepayers know who in the end pays for this. It's them. You and me, we pay for a consultant to a consultant. Because the PUC is a consultative board.
And that's why,
I get, but the question I'm asking the two of you is what happens if we say, because you have more history than we do, what happens if you tell them, hey, no way, we're gonna go tell the ratepayers, the PUC, are gonna give the ratepayers a 40% rate increase because you hired this consultant.
I think that sorry, if I may.
No.
Commissioner Sanchez.
Let me get some history of these guys.
Just my understanding, one of the law. The good news is they're an independent PUC. The bad news is they're an independent PUC. The ratepayers have been paying for all rate cases since we were forced to create a PUC when the legislature's inability to not politicize rates failed. Now you have an independent PUC. And you're familiar with this question. We are often asked, because we represent the ratepayers and we're elected, we're often asked by the rating agencies, why is there another body? But you know the history.
Yep.
A body was created because of a federal law that required an independent PUC. The history, and the chairman knows it as well as anybody, is the cost of regulation is always imposed upon ye that want
That are regulated.
approval, that are regulated, and we pass those on to our ratepayers. While I'm very concerned about the cost and the delay, ultimately, my biggest concern is what's the number? Right? And I think, I appreciate what Miguel is saying, that we have tried to maintain a tradition of, if you know you gotta raise rates, is it better to smooth them out or wait, and then punch everybody in the nose? And I think in practice, our collective attempt in both utilities has been an attempt to spread it out, make the burden, spread that burden out in the future.
Prevent
sometimes-
rate shock.
Yeah, prevent rate shock. Maybe you get more customers, more demand, the economy recovers, and all of a sudden you don't need as much in rates because revenues are being taken care of as you have economic recovery. But our whole approach is to smooth it out. What I'm hearing Miguel describe is exactly a desire to maintain that approach. And the reason I ask Miguel these questions is we may have to ask, what do we wish to do? Not just with Miguel presenting to the PUC, but we represent ratepayers. And I think all of us would be very concerned about a decision that said low, punch in the face, right? And all we can do is opine. This is our collective opinion as the professional manager, as the representatives of elected representatives of ratepayers. This is our concern, and we tell that independent PUC, but then they're independent, and then they make their call. But at least I'm with you that we should articulate our concern and our case. And everything I'm hearing Miguel describe sounds like a approach we have consistently tried to do when you're trying to raise $1.5 billion from this community over 30 years. That's one reason it's going to take 30 years, is we do spread it out. We don't agree that the best way to do that is wait, and then slug everybody in the face, and then wait. We don't think that. We've looked at how we've done it in the past, and spreading it out and smoothing it out has been successful. We don't think that should change as an approach at the PUC level. We may have to help Miguel make that case.
When you're speaking before the PUC and the ALG, are the other members present, or is it just?
So to clarify, the evidentiary hearings are only with the administrative law judge, not with the PUC.
And then it's his job to
To
tell
recommend,
the PUC?
yeah, and so
He gives a report.
my input on that is that the ALJ, and the whole process is to provide rates that are just and reasonable. And we think that what we've presented is reasonable. We think that the expenses that we're asking for and the improvements that we need to make are just. Right? We need to get the system, take care of all of the system. We've taken care, as Commissioner Sanchez put it, we've taken care of some things, but we still have the wastewater collection system that needs to be
We have a
taken
lot
care
more
of.
to do.
We have a lot of water lines
Improving
that
service.
need to be taken care of. And that's part of that CIP, which falls out of a 20-year master plan that has been publicly vetted, and the 5-year CIP, which also has been publicly vetted and approved by both you and the PUC previously in the first the first phase of this. So the ALJ, I think, has the opportunity to, when he presents his report, to affirm that what we've proposed is just and reasonable, and hopefully he does that. If he doesn't, I think at that point, that will be when some action might be required
From all of us.
from the commission. However, I think that the PUC, up to this point, with all the previous 5-year rate plans, has been reasonable and recognizes the value in preparing 5-year plans and following through with them. And I think that they will also recognize the value in our efforts to consider beyond the 5-year rate period and looking at 2025. I mean, that's prudent management to look at that, right?
Yep.
And we're fortunate that our financial consultants have kind of built that prudent approach even into the 20-year master plan. The financial plan portion of the 20-year master plan envisions exactly what we're doing now.
Plans. We've been doing that for a while. Man.
Yeah, and looking forward, and I think the PUC's consultants they don't want to do that because for them it's more dramatic statement of their success if they can say, no rate increases, and then, no one's
Yeah.
thinking about what happens in 2025, and they don't have to because it's not within their scope. So
But we have to think about it.
that's short-sighted, and I think we laid out that case. And so I don't think that there's a reason yet to take any action. I think we need to just wait to see what the ALJ concludes, and hopefully he sees it the way we see it, that this is prudent financial management, and we should move forward with that and take
Could be
advantage of
Merry
it.
Christmas or Merry Bad.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that I heard you say that really bothers me is the fact that they wanted to have a rate design package, a rate model. That was important to the PUC consultants, and I thought it was a good idea too. They required all these analytical studies. And I'm bothered when you tell me that they brought up all these points and you sat and with the ALJ and you went through your rate design model, that everybody said, okay, let's put this together so we can plug the numbers in, and we're talking oranges to oranges, apples to apples, and then the PUC consultant doesn't want to use it.
So,
That to me, this is something that they brought up.
yes. And our collective assessment of their proposed adjustments, for the most part, the biggest things that they proposed was a reduction in operating expenses from the water loss, which they double counted. That was an error on their part. And then essentially the other adjustments, they didn't use the rate model at all. They didn't use any of the detailed information that was put in the rate model. What they did, it seems to us, was they took the 11 months of financial performance data and annualized it, and then they just said, hold those levels and you won't need a rate increase. So
Yeah.
your
So-
cost containment, the things that we've cut out of our operating budget in order to make sure that we meet the 1.25 debt service coverage ratio, things that aren't getting done, road repairs that have been deferred, some of the maintenance that has been deferred, the AGMO struggling to keep everything running without having the full benefit. We have over $4 million in requisitions that have not been approved because of our revenue situation, and they just want us to continue to do that over the next 3 years. And that was the extent of their analysis and what they presented, and it didn't involve using the model the way it was intended to be used. So
That they wanted. A model that they wanted.
That's right.
Yeah, to simplify their life. And they didn't want to use it. That's
So
the thing
that
that
was-
bothers me the most. And all I can tell you is, that's why I said give us the debt service coverage profile, just so that we see that in 2023, you're going to start raising, your debt service starts to go up. In 2024, it goes up. So, if you do nothing at all, how do you account for that? This is not where you're increasing your payroll, increasing this. This is debt service coverage that we've already put into place based on the money we borrowed. And the good news is you're also going to show that by 2030 something, you're going to start, your 2013 bond, I think, goes away. So, that means that shifts the ability. That has to be all part of the rate model that you guys worked on. And I'm surprised that they don't want to use that and they don't want to acknowledge all those things. A simple thing of your debt service coverage is going to go up this fiscal year, 2022, 2023. You're going to get, right now you're at about 31 million or 32 million. You're going to go up to around 40 million. How do you make those extra payments?
But that's what the new borrowing. We've refinanced all of our older debt for savings.
No, that's,
But
yes.
you have new borrowings you wish to
No,
do.
that's what I'm saying. That includes everything. That's what I'm saying. Give us the debt profile with everything in it.
On a going forward, because in your rate case is your debt profile, right?
Yeah,
Hey, I'm
and
going to
that's-
borrow money in this year, I need debt service coverage, however we're structuring it, and therefore that has to be in a rate sooner or later.
Yeah. And that's the point. That's what I'm trying to say, Commissioner Sanchez, is I'm asking her just that one piece alone, just to show, just to illustrate the fact that, this is not something you can just say, just wait. This is not going to wait for anybody.
In our consent decree is
We're still working on that.
Our amended consent decree takes into account these CIPs that you've been developing for the past
So
couple of years.
we don't have a signed consent decree yet. We are in the process of negotiating. We asked for a pause in order to see the outcome of the rate case so we know how it impacts us moving forward. So, but the CIP that we have submitted, with this 5-year rate plan included as best as we could anticipate what those consent decree requirements were going to be, and we've worked them into the capital improvement program.
When do you think that, how is that negotiation of the consent decree going, and when do you think that would be finalized? Because that has a lot to say with the future anyway.
So we by this point, we had hoped that the pause that we asked for to get through the rate proceeding would be completed, and we would now be back at the table negotiating to finalize it. Because of the delay, we don't know when it's gonna be the beginning of next year before we re-engage with US EPA on finalizing the requirements, and at that point, there are still issues to be worked out. I think all of the technical requirements, the compliance requirements, the projects, they've all been laid out. Now it's a matter of, well, when do we put the deadlines on completion? And that's something that still needs to be negotiated.
Because I know historically, the consent decree helped build consensus at the legislature and at the PUC that says, look, either we do this stuff, or Frances Tidinko Gatewood will do it for us. And she doesn't mess around, and she'll order it. And what has resulted was historically a more collaborative effort to recognize that this has to get done, just what you said, that these still have to get done. And it's going to require sacrifices from all of us to make them done. And to the degree the consent decree says this is what US EPA insists, requires us to do. And I trust you that the snapshot of the CIP has a lot of the components of what a subsequent consent decree is. We always knew this. What needs to be done to our system becomes fairly obvious at a simple level in terms of the repairs that have to get done, right? And we're not done. And we're not here to mislead ratepayers that after 20 years we fixed everything and there's not any more things to fix. There's always going to be something to fix, and we still have major pieces of our infrastructure that need attention, and it's a 30-year process to complete all of that, and we're sort of in the middle of it. And so that consent decree can also work into your favor. And it's sort of moot now. If the ALG comes out in the next week or two, you'll react to that. We'll react to that, and then we'll see what the ALJ says. But I think you've done a good job in advising us that there is a pending consent decree still being negotiated. And it's going to look a lot like your case. And so we need to keep that, we need to be cognizant of that at the PUC level, at our level, at the ratepayer level, that says sooner or later we're going to have to get these things done. And we're going to need the revenues to do it, the sacrifices to do it. And when we do that, these outcomes of cleaner water, better environment, less leaks of both water and wastewater, protecting that aquifer, all those positive things accrue to our community if we're willing to invest in it, and the PUC is willing to allow us to give us the rates to invest it. And the alternative is worse than what we already have. It'll actually be a loss of the progress we've made so far. What good is that northern wastewater treatment plant upgrade if we can't get the wastewater to that plant?
Right.
What good is talking about protecting the environment, the aquifer, if we can't fix leaks for water and or wastewater? It's all cheap talk. It sounds great, but it's missing the fundamental duty of the Guam Water Works Authority. All right, so I know we'll join you. Let's see what the ALJ says, and actually we may want to, especially for the future. That consent decree actually may be something that hopefully you're given the amount of time to focus on it, to really nail down with US EPA. Okay, we've come 20 years with you this far, we've checked off 99%. What's the new list? And here's what our list is for these reasons, and I know you've had strong rationale. We make that case, and we're making it the PUC, we make it the EPA, but I think the PUC needs to know that something like this, the CIP plan, which is what's driving most of the rate case, is about to happen. We're just trying to get in front of it, and we need your help. So let's see how it plays out, let's see what role we can play. But I think you've done everything you can do within the process. Let's see what the ALJ says, and then we can revisit, what do we do on behalf of the ratepayers? Right? What do we do?
I
Let
think-
them know what's happening.
And I think the only thing I would add to that, Commissioner Sanchez, is the fact that it could get really, really bad from the perspective of whatever EPA wants us to do. Because right now, we have EPA in agreement with us on the master plan. That involves a lot of other things besides just what they want. And if they don't see a forward progress, they could take it on themselves and say, fine, we don't give a shit about what you want to do. We want this done, and we want it done now. And you're going to do it. And, you know, I mean, I really agree with you. We're fixing the pipes to take the sewage down to the Ganya wastewater treatment plant, but we've asked and we've gotten some tacit agreement that that plant rehab is going to be out there in the future. If we don't get this right as a community, EPA could just say, fine, we just want these things done. You guys can do whatever you want to do. Fix your water pipes on your own time. Improve your service to your customers on your own dime. We don't care. And give us the money now. And they'll just go to the court. I mean,
The history of it, Mr. Chairman, that you're summarizing so well is, we all know what it was like in 2021 at GWA. We had we had a terrible system.
in 2002.
And 1, 2, it was bad. It's
Yeah,
been bad, right? And we had to rebuild it. But even Judge Tydico Gatewood was sensitive to that fact. US EPA was sensitive to the fact that as we make these changes, we can't price water beyond the reach of people.
And
You
we
know,
can't
can
do
all of
everything
this-
at one
We can do all
time.
of this tomorrow, but we don't want water to be a 200% rate increase so we can have everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Our people can't handle that. They need it phased in over time. It's not a wealthy community. And we need to do everything we can to allow this to happen over time. And that includes having the PUC help us, and giving confidence to US EPA and the federal court that we're collectively doing our job, having the legislature help us, give us permission to borrow. And we're trying to do rate plans that spread out the obligation over a significant amount of time to keep the rate as low as we can keep it. That's been our story of success for the past 2 decades, and yet we're not done. We got another decade to go and a half. So it's the same challenge.
It is.
And I'll join all of my colleagues in supporting this process. And
So we'll see how
see what
we
happens.
do. Miguel, thank you.
Thank you for the summary.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
If there's nothing else, okay, just give us the updates on Tuesday, okay? Move to adjourn this meeting? So move second? Meeting's adjourned.